Okay, so I've given you the context for framing what your digital marketing agency is. It is a professional service. And now that we understand the space that we're participating in, we can start to develop strategies that are appropriate for that context. And the strategy that makes the most sense when you're marketing a professional service, the best and easiest way to compete in that market is simple. It's to specialize. Now, I just want to give you some high-level understanding of why this happens. So, there are basically two sustainable competitive advantages that companies can have. The first is economies of scale, and the second is customer captivity. So, when you're selling products, generally you want to focus on economies of scale. You invest in something like a factory, or you invest a lot of time in R&D, software development, for example, and then you're able to sell like 1 million copies of your product. So you're able to dominate markets with economies of scale. But it's actually quite difficult to achieve that when you're creating a digital marketing agency. Digital marketing agencies are often quite small. There are ways to achieve economies of scale by investing in certain infrastructure, by buying out other agencies, etc. But in general, the focus is more on customer captivity. And customer captivity is basically you acquire a client and it's difficult for the client to leave because there's a lot of sunk costs that went into you learning about them, and if they had to switch to another provider, they got to bring all their information, they got to get that other service provider up to speed with all their intricate details. There's a lot of complexity there. So agencies, consultants, professionals are often successful because it's very difficult for clients to leave. The other thing to keep in mind is that so many agencies are tiny. Sometimes they're just one person, maybe 20 people. So when you're small and you only need to support, say, 1 employee, 50 employees, it's very easy to dominate a specific niche, to be highly specialized. It's very profitable to be highly specialized. But where you run into problems is as you grow. You can't be a specialist anymore. You have to go after the broader market. But generally, when we're thinking about professional services, we're not interested in massive growth. We're not selling something like Apple iPhones to a global market. We're selling something like our time for a limited number of people to a limited number of customers. So specialization is typically the default strategy for professional service firms. And we have lots of data to support why that's effective. And I'm going to go through some of those. High growth firms are 75% more likely to be highly specialized. So you want to be a high growth digital marketing agency, you should be highly specialized. There is a strong pattern of pursuing niche or highly specialized services. Okay, and we see some data here, right? High growth firms, 26.1%. No growth firms, 14.9%. So specialization is highly associated with fast growth professional service firms. And one of the reasons that it's so successful is that you are less of a commodity at that point. You're an expert in a specific field. So when clients come to you, they're more likely to hire you, they're willing to pay you more, they're going to be more forgiving of your mistakes because, well, he or she, they're the expert. So if things go wrong, they're less likely to blame you because you're the specialist. You are the expert. So if something goes wrong, it has to do with the environment. Oh, it wasn't going to work anyways. It has less to do with your expertise. All right, another quotation. The most successful practices provide specific services to specific populations. Again, you're not just some generic SEO provider, some generic Google Ads provider. You are an expert in a narrow area. Now, there are different types of specialization. I'm going to get into those later. But let's continue. Most professional service firms demand specialization. And I detailed some of the reasons for that based on my own analysis of the economics. All right. Now, let's talk about the selection process that the buyers go through when they're choosing you as a digital marketing consultant over another, for example. During the selection process, buyers value expertise above all else, not customer service. So it's not like how friendly you are, not the relationship, not that kind of a buddy-buddy relationship you had on the golf course, not even price. So price is not the most important factor. Expertise rules new business. Fastest growing, most profitable firms make their expertise visible and tangible to their target audiences. So again, it is your specialization, your narrow expertise, that's what dominates. It's less about your personality. It's less about how much you can drop your price. Everything to do with how much you're perceived as a specialist expert. All right, so this is something that you're probably familiar with, which is that specialists bill out at substantially higher rates. All right, so if you want to increase the revenue of your company, one of the easiest ways to do it is simple, specialize. Now, you can't see the reference here, but this is coming to us from data at Hinge. So Hinge has a very, very credible firm that does professional services marketing.